Let's return to what we heard from Donald Trump a little earlier. He has rejected a leaked US intelligence report that casts doubt over the success of America's strikes on Iran. I'll talk about that in more detail with Gordon Correra, the BBC's former security correspondent, here in a moment. But Donald Trump also saying at that news briefing that the US and Iran would be meeting at some stage next week. So let's head to Tel Aviv and to our correspondent Mark Lowen, who's there for us. And Mark, that was very interesting. Donald Trump very open about talks and a meeting with Iran next week. He said we'll be asking for what we asked before, which was no nuclear. So your reading of that?
I have to say, Matthew, there's been no confirmation that we can see at the moment from the Iranian authorities of that meeting. Steve Witkoff, Donald Trump's envoy-in-chief for all the crises in the world, it seems, apparently is having sort of indirect and talks with Tehran, but there's been no official word that we have got so far from Iran corroborating that comment from Donald Trump. But clearly there is so little trust from the Iranian side now, both in Israel and in America, having seen Trump's comment that there was going to be a 2-week window for diplomacy as perhaps some kind of decoy or ruse before American bombers came in. And of course, 2 days before the US and Iran were due to sit down for a 6th round of nuclear negotiations, the Israeli bombing began. So I think that, it's going to be probably quite difficult to get the Iranians back around the negotiating table. And on top of that, you've got to bear in mind, Matthew, that for so long, for decades, the nuclear program has been a symbol of independence and sovereignty for the Iranians, also a negotiating tool with the West. So, if Donald Trump is kind of triumphantly saying that actually that program has been destroyed, well, how much are the Iranians going to want to talk to the Americans at the moment, having been so incredibly damaged by what has happened? I mean, our chief international correspondent, Lyse Doucet, has sent this report after crossing the border into Iran. She is allowed to report from there on condition that none of her reports are used on the BBC's Persian service. This law from Iranian authorities applies to all international media agencies operating in Iran.
Day 2 of the ceasefire, and despite its shaky start, it seems to be holding, and traffic is starting to return to the streets of Tehran. The city is starting to look like itself, but so many of the cafes, the shops, the government offices are still shut. So many residents fled this city once Israeli attacks started, and they seem to be waiting until the end of the Iranian weekend, which starts tomorrow, to see whether it truly holds. But some rhythms of life are returning. The internet is coming back, and with it, the social media platforms are filling up with strongly worded posts. Some Iranians praising their government, others protesting. And this kind of conversation in private and public is certain to intensify. What happens outside also matters too, most of all in Washington with President Trump, but across this region too, and far beyond. As enormously relieved as Iranians are that there is a ceasefire, many are also asking, how long will it last?
A rare report from inside Tehran there by Lyse Doucet, our chief international correspondent. But Matthew, while the glare over the last 12 days has been on the Iran conflict, let's not forget what is also happening in the other war that Israel is fighting against Hamas in Gaza, where the situation is continuing to deteriorate on a daily basis. Over the 12 days of the Iran-Israel war, 868 people have been killed in Gaza by Israeli fire, many of them while queuing for aid. The situation on the ground absolutely catastrophic, and that mechanism set up by the US and Israel to deliver aid, called the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, has been labeled constantly a death trap. Also, the casualties are mounting on the Israeli side. In the last 24 hours, 7 Israeli soldiers were killed by an improvised explosive device blowing up their armored vehicle inside Gaza. And that takes the total number of Israeli soldiers killed since the ground offensive against Hamas in Gaza began to 440. The big question is whether the ceasefire in Iran provides some kind of momentum now, some kind of renewed opportunity for the Israeli government to seek to rein in the war in Gaza and seek a solution there. That is a very, very big question. Donald Trump said that he believes that there will be good news from Gaza in the next few weeks. But then again, he did say that the Ukraine war would end within 24 hours when he took office.
Absolutely. Mark Owen there in Tel Aviv, thanks very much.